Hey, it's Richard Geller here, and I want to welcome you to our next in the series. And I want to thank you. You've got a lot of questions that come in. Hey, Alan, how you doing?
I'm doing well. I'm excited as always to be talking about apartment complexes.
Yeah, man, it's so exciting. We had a lot of questions that have been coming in. We've been answering for people. We had a couple of interesting ones. I just want to bring everybody up to where we are so that we'll start today. Um,
Okay.
we've been talking about and tracking this entire purchase, sale, and maybe reflip of the Casa Bonita, this sort of small apartment building that anybody on this call could really be able to handle. And we showed last time how. Let's go back to our mind map here.
Okay.
Let's see how we do this. Ah, there it is. So we talked about we talked about finding deals like this. We talked about getting the money together quite a bit last, and in fact, all the way through last time, and about how to find partners, good deals, bad deals, lenders, how to work with lenders, rates, terms, important numbers. We really went into a lot of that. And now we're going to be talking about the closing. And this is the property this is the property, and it's a gorgeous. It looks like a beautiful property. I think when you go out to see these, they don't always look so great as they do in a
Well, I'll
photo.
tell you what, Richard. I mean that picture was taken the day of purchase, and we hired a professional photographer. We rehabbed it. The rehab is done. The painting is done, and we hired a professional photographer to go out and take incredible pictures because he's already done some of our properties. And I just want to share this with everybody. It cost $85 to do this. So they're
Huh.
taking around 16 pictures, high res. They're going to look great online. We're going to throw them into our property management website. Makes it easier to rent the units. So next week, I hope to have these 16 pictures back from the photographer that only cost $85, and you're going to see some real incredible before and after pictures.
Hmm. Oh, that's exciting. Well, I'm really looking forward to that. And we are going to be covering the closing today. A lot about how to do the closing and all of that.
Right.
And just a few questions that have come in. So we had a deal what we were looking at that was assumable, and they said that a condition of purchase was that the buyer actually assumes that loan. And then we had a couple people that had similar deals. So my two questions are: why do they insist that the loan be assumed, and can the loan be assumed without a personal guarantee? Two questions.
Okay, let's talk about assumable loans and why they have to be assumable. Well, the seller probably doesn't want to have to pay the penalty of the loan going away. It could be very expensive for a few reasons. First of all, there could be a prepayment penalty. And what a lot of lenders do, they call it 5 4 3 2 1 schedule, which is the fifth year. I'm sorry, the first year you'll pay a 5% penalty. The second year you'll pay a 4% penalty. Third year you'll pay a 3% penalty if you prepay down to 2 years, 1 year. So in the sixth year you might be free and clear to sell. So the seller might, not want to pay that penalty price. That's one reason why they are demanding that you take the lending in place. The second thing is something we call defeasance and yield maintenance. Sometimes when the banks lend money on these properties, they go ahead and do something on their end that you're not too aware of. Maybe they lend out the money or they lock something up, which basically means they need to guarantee that stream of payment. They can't operate under the pretense that that loan might go away. For example, we have a few loans personally with a life insurance company, and they're 10-year loans. Now, life insurance companies, they are guaranteeing payments to their annuities, and they have to make sure that they have that stream of income coming in. So they totally include defeasance and yield maintenance. And what that means to all of us is to the borrower, if that loan goes away, you have to make up for the money that the life insurance company or the bank will not collect. And how do you do that? Sometimes they'll require that you go out and buy a treasury bond at 3 or 4 points to guarantee that income stream over the time that you promise to hold the loan. Now, another reason why loans must be assumable, let's say you did a Fannie Mae loan. I actually think a Fannie Mae loan is something that makes the property look more attractive because um, in commercial real estate, unlike single family houses, um, the it's common practice. I mean, I'd say 50 to 75% of all the loans are assumable. And you want that because rates have been so low over the last, say, 5 years. If you can lock in at any of these rates we've seen in the last 5 years, well, that's great for you because obviously you have to pay back less each month, so your cash flow will be greater. And you kind of wiggled your way into a Fannie Mae loan, which is great for your resume. And next time you want to do a Fannie Mae loan or you want to go buy your second or third property, they'll take a look at how you've been performing. And of course, you're going to be performing great because you're listening to me and Richard. And it'll make it that much easier for you to get your next loan. So, Richard, how is that?
That's excellent. That's
Okay.
excellent. And we love Fannie Mae loans. There are no personal guarantees on them. They're non-recourse.
Right.
They're assumable. Their interest rates are good. They're reasonable. What are the downsides of Fannie Mae loans? They're a little bit. They take longer to get than your local bank, right?
They do, and let me give you an example. I can give you from both sides of that because right now I have a property. It's a 160 unit property, and we're in the Fannie Mae process, and it's going to take us 3 to 4 months to actually close. And they've asked us for a lot. I mean, a lot of paperwork. I had to put someone on my team on it full time. Um, so it takes a while, and sometimes it's a little costly up front, but I'm getting like a 30, I think it's like a 30 to 35 year amortization schedule at like a 4.25 rate. And we're going to be locked in for a very, very, very long time.
They don't have balloon
So,
payments generally.
correct.
Yeah.
They don't have balloon payments. We don't have to worry about that. And what's really exciting about the Fannie Mae loans is that my name doesn't have to guarantee the loan anymore. So we talked about this in one of our other episodes, recourse and non-recourse loans. Um, Sometimes when you work with a local bank, you're on the hook, right? You're on the hook, so it's recourse. You're responsible for that property. You're responsible for that loan. But when you can assume someone's Fannie Mae loan, that's non-recourse. You're not on the hook, which is, God forbid it doesn't work out, you want to walk away, you just drive over to the bank that's servicing the Fannie Mae loan and drop off the keys. You can walk away free and clear. So we love non-recourse loans, and it's also better for it makes it easier for you to borrow in the future as well because even though the property's being lent money based off of the performance of the property, banks do get a little shy when one has too much credit, one's borrowed too much money. So I have around 10 recourse loans, and over the last few months, we've been working on Fannie Mae non-recourse loans, and we got that number down to 7 or 6. So I'm freeing up my credit by doing these non-recourse loans with Fannie Mae.
Have you gone to your local bank and gotten them to do a non-recourse loan with you?
No, I haven't. I don't think someone might pull it off. I don't think it's possible. They don't have to do it. And they want you to be on the hook. So the answer is I haven't seen it, and I'm on the hook for every loan that I've got from a small local bank.
Okay. All right. Well, good. So those are the two questions. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
So we're going to focus on. I just wanted to show where we're at here. We're going to be focusing on our moving ahead on our map here,
Hmm.
past getting the money together to the closing, and we have a document we're going to look at right now to just kind of go over the whole process with dates, and I think that's kind of interesting.
Yeah, so you want to dive into that?
Yeah, why don't we do that?
It's kind of interesting. So this is a property that I'm in contract to sell. It's not Casa Bonita. We just thought this would be bring a lot of value to everybody listening for this closing presentation. Um, and this is called a critical dates list. And one of the reasons why I like this so much is because I don't have to create it. The title company creates it. This is part of their job. They will do this for you. And the critical dates list is basically the important dates that the buyer, the seller, and the brokers all need to be aware of, what to expect throughout your 30, 60, 90, or 120 days of due diligence, when you put your deposit down, when the money goes hard, when it's non-refundable, when your due diligence, your inspection period's over. So we can go through some of these dates quickly. But again, it's fantastic. If you have a Google Calendar, you might want to throw some of these dates on the calendar or just print this out. Keep it near you when you're going through the closing process.
Great.
So the effective date basically is when the contract is not only just signed by the buyer and the seller, but the title company will send everyone an email and say, ladies and gentlemen, this is in receipt of the contract. And that's when your effective date starts, when the title agency says so. So, which is very important because sometimes deals become very challenging over a 24-hour period. Maybe if it closes one day late, perhaps maybe the seller doesn't want to sell, so they're waiting for, to find a way out. Or so you really want to be clear on when the contract begins, what's the effective date, and again, the title agency will let you know.
Well, how
Deposit of
does that tie
earnest
into
money.
the LOI, if it does at all?
Um, well, the letter of intent gets the process going, and the seller and the buyer start signing a document, and they're in agreement that somebody wants to buy something and somebody wants to sell something. And it's the beginning, it's the rough draft of things. But just because my LOI says I'll close in 45 days, um, that's not as binding as receiving, a signed contract, two signatures, and the title agency saying, okay, we're going to issue an insurance policy, a title insurance policy on this deal. Here's the effective date. Clock starts ticking now. So the clock doesn't start ticking from the LOI time period. It starts when the title agency says, you know, the race is on.
Okay,
Uh,
so what I'm trying to do is put the background here on this because there's the
okay.
earnest money. So where's the earnest money gone to so far? Who has that?
The earnest money is sent to the title agency. Never send it to the buyer or the seller. Sorry,
Or
never
the
send it
broker?
to the seller or the broker. It has to go to the title agency, and I would recommend using a national title agency. There's some very, very large ones across the world, especially in the United States. So, yeah, your money goes to the title agency.
Now, there's this expression about the money going hard, the deposit. So does that mean that at that point it's non-refundable to the buyer
That is correct. I think what we're about to look at is the person that's buying this property from me um, is sending over $50,000.
hmm
Of the $50,000, we're giving him, I think it was a 10-day look, a
hmm
10-day look and on the 11th day, $5,000 goes hard of the 50 non-refundable.
hmm
And then I believe like 21 or 28 days later, the other 45,000 goes hard,
Okay.
non-refundable.
Okay. And that was on the letter of intent, presumably.
Yeah, yeah, that was basically the understanding, but now it's officially spelled out
Now there's been a
by the title.
contract that's replaced the letter of
Yes,
intent. The contract is the real governing agreement at this point. And now we're
yes,
looking at the dates that have to do with the contract for the closing. And so, number two, deposit of earnest money, is that already happened or is that going to happen now,
yeah.
right now?
No, it's already happened, and it says right there. Once this contract is signed, you have, I believe, my screen's a little cut off here. You have 3 days to send over the money,
Okay.
which is normally, normally it's just you got to give the buyer or seller a little time to react to a signed contract.
hmm
You just can't expect a check to come over with a signed contract. Give them a little time.
Right. Okay. All right.
All right. So then we see number three, seller's delivery of title commitment. I think that's really just a title agency saying yes,
Gibberish.
yes,
Okay.
we're going to issue clear title.
Basically, the title company has to do a search and they do a preliminary title report showing that the seller can deliver title at this point. Is that correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yes, and the title company will issue an insurance policy if anything goes wrong.
So that's what
Um,
they mean by commitment in title policy language. That means
yes,
they're willing to insure this title on this transaction.
correct.
Okay.
All right, which is important. Really, not it's not that important to me and you, but it's going to be very important to your bank, the lender.
Yeah, it
All
ain't
right.
gonna happen without that. So,
Yeah, exactly.
have you ever had something fall out because of title issues?
Um, no, but I've had things delayed over title issues.
Right.
Maybe an easement or a lien.
Yeah.
So yeah, I mean, or maybe there's a property being sold by a group of investors. Maybe there's 10 people involved in a deal and one signature is missing.
Yeah. Okay.
So delivery of survey. So when someone's selling a property, there's a good chance that the seller will have a survey that was done when they bought the property. Surveys can cost anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. So if it's there, why not try to get it? Um, and that's what that basically saying that we will deliver the survey. We did have it done because anytime you borrow money from a bank, they're going to require that a survey is get. They're going to require a survey. They want to know if it's already done. If not, go and get it done.
Hmm. Okay.
Okay.
And that's basically what it is in a residential deal. It's a similar thing. It's a engineer, some surveyor goes out and does an official
Right.
survey. Okay.
Right.
All right. Okay. Then
Are
what's
you able to
number
move?
five?
I can't see four. Hang on. I got to clear scale. There we go. Buyer's period to object to commitment and survey. Within 10 days following the effective date, which was May 30th. Yeah, basically, what that means to me is that the buyer has the option to disagree with maybe what the survey says. Maybe the buyer thought that there was an extra lot of land that was included
Hmm.
and it doesn't show in the survey. So that's what that means. Buyer's period to object to commitment of survey.
Okay.
And then number six, seller's response to buyer's objections within 15 days. So again, maybe there's a problem over what's included when it comes to land, and buyer and the seller have to work things out. Um, and then number seven, feasibility period, 37 days after the effective date of contract. Inspection period is during the feasibility period as well per contract. Let me tell you a little bit about this particular deal. This buyer is a first time buyer, and I am selling him the property. It's been a little challenging, but I can respect and understand where he's coming from. Normally, when I buy a property, I get out there with a few of my professionals and we walk every unit. But he's actually showed up by himself, and he's very concerned. He's an engineer, and he's actually went into every single unit. And normally, when I inspect the property, I can get through it in half a day. He spent 2 or 3 days inspecting this property, which is
Hmm.
fine. He's
Hmm.
he's within his contract rights, and I can tell you that 37 days after the effective date, which is going to be Monday morning, um, he's either going to tell us he's not going to pursue the deal, and then we get to keep that $5,000 that went non-refundable after the 11th day into the
Hmm.
contract, or his $50,000 is now going to become non-refundable by Monday afternoon.
Okay.
So and that's really that's the day. That's the day we're waiting for because there's no turning back. Most people aren't going to walk away from $50,000.
Right.
5,000. I thought that was a little inexpensive to get into the deal in the first place,
Right.
but my broker talked me into it, and I had good reason to believe that he can close. And I spoke to the lender as well that said that they're going to lend him money on the deal, and they like the deal too.
Hmm.
So then number eight, 60 days after the expiration of the feasibility period, August 27th, this deal is going to close.
Okay. All right. So
Actually,
that's
if there's one more thing, is it? I believe if I remember correctly, we gave him a 15-day option. to purchase for $5,000 or $10,000.
Mm-hmm.
If you couldn't close within the first 60 days, um, for another, say, $10,000, we'd give him 2 more weeks. Why not? It's a good deal. If he doesn't follow through, then I got $60,000 for him tying me up in contract for anywhere between, I guess, 60 and 75 days.
So he paid that money already. That option money is non-refundable, or did he?
No, he hasn't. We're okay. We're still within the 60-day period, so he
Okay.
hasn't needed to exercise that option. But if he does, if he can't close on time and he's already hard $50,000 into the deal, I'll be nice and I'm going to sell him an option for $10,000 and give him 2 more weeks.
So that's a great tip for all of us out here because we could get a little more time up front. We
You're
could
right.
ask for it and pay a little bit of something for it.
Absolutely. I mean, things go wrong. I mean, a storm can blow in, or maybe one of the professionals during the phase one, or maybe the survey is delayed. Maybe I don't have the survey, and now we have to go order one. So, sure. I mean, I have good intentions. I want to sell the property. We're going to make a boatload of money on it, and it's a good deal for him as well. I'm just moving on. I want to buy bigger properties, and we're letting some of the smaller ones go.
Hmm. Okay. All right.
So that's the critical dates list. And again, um, I didn't create this. The title company created it for us and put us all on the same page so we can all work together.
That's great. It's really, really great. Um, all right.
So we're
So
talking
we're
about the
actually
closing.
moving to the closing right now.
Okay.
Um, so there's a lot to discuss here, but basically, that's a good way to discuss it during this period. So we should add the survey has to be done. We
And
should add
a phase one.
phase one environmental. All right. Um, and that's all the details that are in the contract. They aren't necessarily in that critical dates note.
Correct.
Okay, all right. But what's sort of the progression on this thing? So, what is a phase one environmental for people that are new in this?
Okay. So a phase one environmental is something that your bank will require, and it's something you should have done anyway. And it's it entails an engineer, a qualified engineer, to go out to the property and look for defects that would harm somebody. For example, a soil sample, for example. They'll come on in and I think they'll dig down in a few different places on the property, maybe like 12 inches into the ground or 24 inches into the ground, and take soil samples. And they'll actually send those samples to labs to make sure that, make sure that it wasn't, built on a dump, or I think in the 1950s and 60s and even in the 70s, um, being located right next to a dry cleaner. I can't remember. Do you remember the chemical that dry cleaners use?
Perk.
But it was a lot of places disposed of it the wrong way, and it seeped into the soil maybe through their um, the tanks they had in the back, or even talking about tanks, gas stations. Um, so you want to check the soil. All right, you don't want anyone to get hurt, and I don't want anyone to buy a property that has any kind of evidence of having those harmful elements on the property. So that's part of the phase one.
Who
The
pays
other
for
thing
that,
that they
Alan?
the buyer pays for it. The bank will require the buyer to pay for it. Phase ones usually cost anywhere from $1,000 to $3,000. So build that into your budget. Um, basically, so yeah, $1,000 to $3,000. Build it into your budget. And I just also wanted to add too. So they'll check the soil. They're also going to check for asbestos. They're actually going to get in there and they're going to chip off small pieces of the sheetrock. And if there's some kind of linoleum on the floor, they're going to pull up a few pieces. There used to be this black glue that was used to put these floors down that was considered dangerous. But you know what? I wouldn't be too concerned. I've actually, in the 12 properties that I own, and the other 10 that I manage, we've never had any problems with this. We never were required to go to a phase two. So phase one costs between 1,000 and 3,000, and it's just a summary. It's a real easy dusting of the property.
Mm-hmm.
Now, if something comes back that concerns the engineer, then they might require a phase two. That becomes a little more expensive, but at least you know now there's evidence of a problem, and it's going to be up to you, the buyer, to pursue it. And not only that, now that the seller knows about the property, he has to legally let everyone else know that there was a problem with the phase one and the phase two was required. So you might be able to use that in a negotiation to retrade the property to get a better price anyway. So look, these are large properties, and a lot of them are located in city areas, and these are some of the things we have to deal with um, when we buy commercial real estate. It's not enough to say I'm not going to get involved, but here's what's really important. Banks really want to have a phase one done, because when the engineer goes out there and you employ that engineer, they guarantee it and they're signing off on it. Well, they have an insurance policy that you get to inherit as well. So if anything goes wrong, the bank can go back and sue that engineer, and their insurance policy should kick in and rectify any problem. Does that make sense?
That's why it costs a good amount of money
Yes.
because the
Yes.
liability insurance that they have covers you as well in case they miss something or whatever. And the other thing I just want to say is that the liability is basically almost unlimited for this, and even for the lender. So they won't allow anything to be done and to be lent on without doing this.
Yeah, I mean, I had a property recently where we got a letter from the EPA, and they basically said we're coming on your property. It turns out there was a dry cleaners located to that property, maybe like 10 or 15 years ago. I didn't even know about it, and they took some soil samples. I was a little nervous. I've owned the property for 3 or 4 years, but I had the phase one done, and I knew that we were covered. There was an insurance policy
Right.
on rectifying any kind of problem I might run into.
Okay. Wonderful. All right.
All right, phase one
Do you want?
surveys. Look, between the phase ones and the surveys, it could take anywhere from 2 to 6 weeks to get these done. So when you're in your due diligence period, we just went through the critical date list, and you have 60 to 75 days to close. You really want to start nailing that down as fast as possible. So you're going to have to order your survey right away if it's not included with the purchase of the property. I can tell everybody that if you're buying a Fannie Mae property, Fannie Mae will not share their surveys. They don't want the responsibility of anything going wrong. I've had this problem. I bought many Fannie Mae properties, but and I once had this problem where I thought they were going to give us the survey because it was written into the contract that way, and it turns out that they didn't. So we got a survey done in 14 days. Um, so order your survey and order your phase one right away, because the phase one might come back with a problem, and then you got to go to phase two. Now, again, if you have to go to phase two, you'll probably get more time in the contract anyway, but hire these professional companies ASAP.
The survey
But
is a one
yeah,
to $3,000 also.
yeah, same, almost like the same price. They're cheaper than the phase ones.
All right. And your broker will know who to get a survey from, or the title company will let you know, right?
Again, yeah, it's so easy. I don't want anyone to get concerned. Your broker is going to love referring you to people, because my broker will call me up and he'll try to talk me into closing out a particular title agency, and hire a particular survey company, and hire a particular phase one company. I mean, it's a referral business.
Right.
So the more people he can bring into the deal, the more chance he gets to be in their deals.
Okay. All right. And so that's how you also found the title company. And so actually, the title company even comes before this, really.
Yeah, yes.
What about the attorneys and the that you're
I like to
using?
have them lined up. I really think everyone should have an attorney lined up before you actually need it. I really want everyone to use an attorney when you're buying a property. I mean, the contracts, if you're not using an attorney, I can guarantee you the contract is going to be written from one direction, and it's not going to be your direction.
The seller's direction.
So, sellers, yeah, absolutely. I mean, even right now, we're in contract to buy a 160 unit deal. Typical Texas, we're using a typical Texas sales contract. It's a 13 pager, but the seller is just he's just he's just doctored it up so much that it's creating more problems for us than being some kind of proprietary contract. It's you need help. You need help on these things. I just read an email back about this standardized contract, and the attorney was saying they've X'd out so many amendments to protect the buyer that it's just so one-sided. You might want to start over in a new contract.
Mm-hmm. Hmm.
So have your attorney. There's plenty of attorneys. Where do you find them? If you have to go to your local real estate club, there's going to be a bunch of them advertising their services. Google for attorneys, or just ask the title ask your broker for an attorney. But you need one, and I'd say you're going to spend anywhere from $750 to a few $1,000s for an attorney to take you through the whole process. Because
Okay.
as the title agency does their work, your attorney will get involved as well. Your attorney will look at the survey. Your attorney will look at the phase one, and your attorney will look at the contract. So the attorney is going to be more involved than you probably imagined.
I want to also emphasize you want to find a commercial real estate attorney,
Yes.
not a residential one, and
No.
somebody with multifamily experience.
Right.
A lot of attorneys in real estate, they just do residential closings, and some of them will say, "Sure, we'll do. I can do that," but they're not specialists in it. And they don't do that much of it.
Right. No, definitely. And then you'll actually find a lot of these commercial real estate attorney firms have a lot of experience with REITs and larger companies that have portfolios of real estate. And it's just an incredible educational process for one to go through. So lots of reasons why you want to tag on to a really good commercial real estate attorney firm,
Okay.
law firm.
What's the next step typically?
So, okay, so the inventory list
Okay.
in the final walkthrough. Well, we'll talk about the final walkthrough. So, I mean, right now, there's a buyer of one of my properties doing his final walkthrough. He's got until Monday to go forward or not go forward, and that's it. The final walkthrough. He should be done with the heavy lifting. He should be done with walking into every unit. And right now, he's just literally just walking through the property, maybe looking at boilers or air conditioner units, just stuff that you can kind of, he shouldn't be taking apart anything any longer, just stuff that he can see on the outside surface, and just to verify all the findings that he found over the last 30 days. So that's really the final walkthrough. And as far as the inventory list,
So
it's really
I 1 second
yeah,
on this. Are you?
yeah, yeah.
Is he going to go through each unit and he's not? What's I mean in the real
He's going
world?
to go through Richard. He's going to go through each unit during his say. He's got a due diligence period. He might have 60 to 75 days to close the deal, but
Mhm.
inside that period, there's a due diligence period of, say, maybe 21 days. And it basically is saying, look, give me a few days' notice when you want to come onto the property and look in every unit. And we did that last week. And like I said, he spent 2 or 3 days. He walked into every single unit. And I highly recommend it. Go into every single unit. There's that old cliche that, the one unit that you don't get in, maybe it's burnt. And it's true. And I got to tell you something. We actually have a burnt unit on this property that he couldn't get into. But we fully disclosed it.
How do you
Um,
handle tenants in this case?
well, you have to give the tenants at least 24-hour notice. Maybe you want to give them 2 or 3 day notice and we just we photocopy a little message and we put it up on their door. And I don't like to rattle everybody's cages, so we just say, look, we're coming around to do inspections. We don't tell them why. We don't tell them that the property's up for sale,
Right.
it's changing hands. People get nervous. They don't need to know that anyway.
Right.
So it's an inspection. You might want to say maybe an inspection from your insurance company, or it's just an inspection, and everybody knows the rules when they're on.
It's in the
It's
lease. But why couldn't
yeah.
they get into that one unit that you had to disclose to the buyer? What was the issue with the one unit?
We literally changed the locks on that door. So he actually and the property manager didn't have the right key at the time. So I'm just sharing it with everybody. It's true. The one or two, the one unit you can't get into, there's probably a reason, and the reason really was that it was a danger. We changed the locks, and so we gave him a discount on the contract. We knew about that.
So the walkthrough in this case is just going to be sort
Yeah.
of a quicker sort of assessment of the property,
Yes.
basically.
Yeah. Just verification.
Like nothing's changed since we looked at it 3 weeks
Right.
ago.
Right. I still got the same lights hanging in the common areas. We didn't walk off with all the condensers. The furniture is still there, and we're actually gonna let's talk about that in the inventory list in a second
Okay.
because in our inventory list on the property that we're selling right now, we we didn't put in the furniture in the leasing office, and the buyer was upset. He thought we were keeping the furniture. We weren't. So we immediately put it in, but he sent us an email and he said that's not fair. Or I thought I was getting the furniture. So we left the furniture off the inventory list, so we added it. So on the inventory list, I like everyone to ask for one because what you really want to find out is are the sewer machines included? Because those can cost $2,000 or $3,000. It's nice to have a nice sewer machine on the property, so you don't have to call a professional plumber company up every time you have a problem. Your maintenance people will know what to do with the sewer machine. Or there's sewer machine, tools, freon, furniture, AC condensers. Look, you're buying a business, and you don't want to see the tools disappear the first day when you walk on site after you bought it.
Yeah.
So make
Yeah.
sure it's in the inventory list.
Hmm. How soon
Uh,
prior to the actual closing is this inventory list checked?
it's the inventory list was created over the last 2 weeks, so I'd say halfway through the due diligence period, or let's just say on a 60-day contract, we sent over an inventory list within the first 30 days. We just had it. We didn't get around to it. Um, so yeah, I think one can see that the inventory list can be worth a good $10,000 to $30,000 worth of materials that you want to make sure you're entitled to it.
Right.
So that's the inventory list that you want to make sure that's there during the closing. And what should we do the day before closing? Okay, day before closing, you might want to just. What I like to do is we like to say, tell us where you are on your collections, run a rent roll, so we can see who's paid and who hasn't paid, because this brings up a very interesting point. Um, how much money? I mean, let's just say there's a 30-day period where rent is being collected and you're closing in the middle of the month. And let's just say 75% of the money was already collected, 25% was outstanding. Well, the 75% that was collected is staying with me, the seller. I still own it. I'm still operating it. It's
Right.
my money.
Right.
But you want to make sure as the buyer, you're entitled to that 25%. So I like to ask for a current rent roll, and maybe an up-to-date profit and loss statement. And I like to have a list of utility companies. I want to be ready to switch. Your property management company will help you with making this transition, and we'll talk about Richard in another time on during the transition working with your property management company.
Hmm.
But you got to be ready to go with your gas company, your electricity company, your water company. The seller is going to want you to switch all that stuff over ASAP, or they're going to get upset. And
Right.
last thing you want is a seller turning that stuff off and upsetting the tenants.
Right.
So stuff like this should be addressed the day before close. You might want to put the order in prematurely, just letting the utility companies know.
Okay.
Okay, and again, so we talked about splitting up the rent, and what's pretty cool is um, money that's outstanding. So we talked about 75% already being collected for the month, 25% outstanding. But then there's also money that's been outstanding, say maybe 30, 60, 90 days past due. You're entitled to that as well. So you want to know what's past due um, in collections.
Hmm.
Okay. Um,
There's an adjustment for this that has to be done.
there is.
And
And
were there
here's
assumptions
here
made with the purchase price and the contract so that if those assumptions are deviated from, then the escrow can adjust?
yes, I yes, and I've seen sellers do that with buyers or buyers do that with sellers.
Well, one reason it's important is that rent is paid in advance. So if you're closing in the middle of the month, the seller has actually collected rent for the full month, even though they're not going to own the property for the last 2 weeks of the month.
Yeah, and I agree with you. And listen, everybody, the best way to get around all this, so you can really hit the ground running, try to time it out. See if you can take over the property on the first or the second.
That's good point.
I mean, that's just worth tens of thousands of dollars. Take over the property in the beginning of the month and not the end of the month.
Yeah, if you can. Okay. Why do you get a P&L? I mean, do you use that against them later if there's a problem? I mean, I'm just being blunt, but is that
Yeah. Um, yeah, yeah, kind of. I want to see. I want to make sure that I want to see what bills have been paid, what bills haven't been paid. Even
oh,
though as the new buyer, you're not going to be responsible, but it's a heads up. I want to see that they paid their water bill or their gas bill, or it just. I want to see if there was any major repairs done recently that nobody told me about. Maybe a pipe broke and they had to hire a plumbing service.
okay.
Sometimes it's pretty cool. You know, sometimes I'd like to see them spend a lot of money right before I buy the property. It makes me feel good. They uncovered. Really? They uncovered it. I mean, I'd love to see a sewer pipe break right before I buy a
Yeah,
property.
well, it's less likely to break a day after closing.
Absolutely. I mean, so a lot of properties have galvanized piping, and we have this saying, how do you replace galvanized piping? It lasts a long time, but eventually it has to be replaced. And we say 1 foot at a time with PVC.
Yeah.
So galvanized pipe breaks. You want to see a plumbing service get in there with a bunch of PVC and fix it. So yeah, that's the P&L. So a fresh rent roll and a P&L, utilities, make sure they're being switched over. Um, I might want to just add quickly, everybody, when you're signing up for using utilities, there's going to be some hefty deposits that need to be put down for gas and electricity. So work that into your budget. Talk to your utility company before you close.
Okay, and there's
On a
no
70,
it's
yeah,
not done on like your credit. It's actually done on with a deposit.
yeah, it's done on the history of the property and you know, I remember once I needed like $7,000 for a water deposit. I didn't plan correctly for that, and it was a problem for me.
And it would depend on we've looked at a property that has $100,000 bill for the utilities a year,
Okay.
because it's just as expensive and it's not individually metered. So that could be quite a lot of money that you'd have to put in deposits. I mean, like you said, five or ten thousand
Yeah,
dollars.
and let me share with everybody a little golden nugget on how to get around that, and just in case you didn't budget for it or you don't have the funding for it. There's a process. It's an insurance process, and it's called bonding. And there's lots of companies out there that will put the money up for you, and they'll finance your deposit for you.
Oh, okay,
Because there's some all bills paid properties that have some very large electricity bills.
right.
So you might have to come up with $10,000 or $20,000 in an electricity deposit, and might not have it. Well, easy enough. Just have it bonded and make monthly payments on the deposit.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's a great tip. And so you could
Mm,
always find the name of a bonding company from your broker, hopefully, or your
right.
attorney.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
That's great. All right. So when do we true up and what does that mean?
Um, basically, on the last day, you're going to be sitting there. You're going to be sitting there at the closing table with the title company. Seller might be there. Seller might not be there. And I really would recommend to everybody, have your attorney look at the documents before you go. And I mean, it's only 2 or 3 pages. I mean, it's really no difference than like a residential HUD 1 statement or something, closing statement or a purchase statement. and just look at it and make sure you got all the credits you deserve to get.
Hmm. You mean
Make
specifically
sure,
the closing statement of who gets what money, where the money goes?
yep, yep, yeah. One thing that is always surprising for a buyer is that you're going to receive a tax credit. Let's just say you're buying in the middle of a year. So you're in June or July and you're purchasing the property. And let's just say that the property you're purchasing hypothetically has a $100,000 tax bill a year. Well, the seller is going to give you a $50,000 credit, meaning the seller is going to give you back that $50,000 that he owes in property taxes to
Hmm.
you. Now, of course, 6 months later, you're going to have to pay your property bill, your property tax bill. You're going to get that. You're going to leave with that $50,000.
Because again, property tax is prepaid for the year, basically.
Um,
Is that the reason it was prepaid? So you get a,
well,
or
you
what's
know,
the?
it's not always pre. Well, okay, prepaid or not, I think some agencies do it different. But yeah, you're either prepaying or you owe it for the year you're in. But the bottom line is, if the seller owes for 6 months and it's $100,000 bill, you're going to get a $50,000 check from the seller. It's really that's very helpful. Again, you're
Okay.
going to be responsible. You're going to be responsible 6 months later to pay that whole tax bill. But I mean, I've been able to leave the closing table um, with money buying apartment buildings because of just because of that. Between collecting rents
Hmm.
um, that the seller owed me and collecting a tax credit, a lot of money.
Yeah, could be a lot of money. It's cash. I mean, it's a check, but it's
Um,
cash. I mean, it's not.
and
Yeah.
let me share this very profitable. We'll call it a secret with everybody. Okay, you want to hire a tax agent when you buy an apartment complex, and they're going to go fight your taxes for you, unless you're real entrepreneurial and you want to do it yourself. And a lot of these agencies, these tax agencies, will fight your taxes under the assumption that they'll take a percentage of the savings, which works out great for us. So you immediately you want to prepare for the day of closing. You want to you want to be fighting your taxes the day after, and lower them. So here's what's really interesting. Let's just say the seller had $100,000 tax liability. He gives you $50,000 because he's been there for 6 months, and your tax agent has the tax bill reduced to $50,000. Now
I
you
see.
just saved. I mean, you just made a lot of money. The seller basically technically would have only had to pay you $25,000, so you just made $25,000. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So they
It's
may they may pay you
yeah,
based on past property tax, but the actual
right,
bill may be much lower.
exactly. And I've been in that situation before. I mean, I can tell you that I bought some Fannie Mae foreclosed properties that were boarded up. That let's say it was a $3 million property because nobody hired a tax agent. So the cities or the local taxing authority will just tax as much as they can because that's what everybody else is paying. So say 3% of $3 million, that's $90,000, and then we get in there the day after, and we get that credit of say close to $90,000. Say we get $75,000 in credits to pay that tax bill. We get in there the day after, and we have that beaten down because it's not in business to close to nothing. We just made $75,000.
Yeah, and the reason it was because the tax bill was based upon the apartment building with gross rents, but it was boarded up, so there weren't rents, so
Right,
therefore there wasn't much
right,
property tax due.
right,
Okay, yeah, well, that's a great tip, man. That's worth a lot. Anything to get
right,
put cash in your pocket at this point is very important because cash is the name of the game. You know, you're going to need it.
right, right. So yeah, those are some great tax tips. Utilities, vendors. You want to notify all the vendors right away that there's a new sheriff in town. Love to do business with you. I want to see you. Don't hold me accountable for any past due invoices. I have nothing to do with them. Go talk to the old owner about that, and send me your price sheet. Don't just assume that the guy before you was getting really good pricing. There's lots of ways that we can go out and get discounts in this business, um, through your local real estate investment clubs. If you're, lots of different memberships you can be part of. There's lots of apartment associations that you can be part of, and these are some of the benefits. And we use them. I mean, we save a lot. I mean, you take like a 5 gallon drum of paint that retails for, say, 80 or $90, that you can buy for $30 because you're a member of an apartment association. That's a massive savings. You need this. You need these savings because your competition is already getting the discount. You need to get the discount too. But at the end of the day, it means more cash in your pocket.
Hmm. All right. And lastly, any 11th hour gotchas we're going to worry about here at this point that we haven't discussed?
Um, I can tell everybody that all the problems, whatever the seller was hiding, it's all going to wash out in, right before closing. Maybe there's a lien. Maybe there was an unpaid bill from a mechanic, or a vendor that popped up on the property, or maybe the seller wasn't telling you something. It's all going to pop up right there. So the deal's not closed until it's closed. That's what I can tell everybody. You might feel like you're 100% closing. Um, all the dirty laundry will wash out right before closing, so just expect it to happen. Clear your schedule, be available, and be focused and get it done, and you will get it done. Because I can tell you something: the seller doesn't want to go through the process twice, right? Does not want to go through the process twice.
Sounds quite painful.
Yeah. And now, if I can give everyone advice, when they're on the other side, when they're selling the property, and you do go through this process, just perhaps it does fall apart. Make sure that it's written in your sales contract that you get back all this due diligence, because now you're going to have a box of nice, neat files that you can hand off to someone else, prepared, ready to sell.
Okay. It's a
And you
great tip.
won't have to go through all that, finding all that paperwork again,
Great tip.
right? I can tell
Massive
you right
tip.
now, the property that we're selling right now, I just had this conversation with uh, one of the presidents of my companies. He told me it was very difficult working with this buyer, and he had to produce a lot of paperwork, and and we want it back. If this
Right.
doesn't close, we want it back.
Great. Well, thank you so much, Alan. This has been terrific
Okay,
as always. And next time we're going to be talking about getting in there and doing the rehab.
awesome. And I should we should have a bunch of before and after pictures, and I'm going to share with everybody how to save tens of thousands of dollars of doing the rehab on the exterior and doing it on the interior as well.
I'm so excited about that. I really am. Really looking forward to it. Thank you so much.
Okay,
See you,
fantastic.
everyone. Take care. Bye bye.